Hey everyone, looks like I'm getting ready to cook something today, doesn't it? I, if you have ever watched any of my videos or visited my Etsy shop, you know I do a lot of rusting of different things. And have been asked to show how to rust things. I've really put this off because for one, I just kind of have messed with, I've watched some tutorials and then messed with those combinations because they really didn't work that great for me. I kind of come up with my own, concoction, and you still have to work with it because it's not always going to be the same depending on, what you're using and the type of metal it is and if it's coated and so many things. I mean, this isn't a no fail. I mean, it may be something that you just have to keep working with it. Um, but I decided to go ahead and show how I do it, and hopefully this will help someone. Um, this is just a rusty dish towel. I try to allocate certain things, as you can tell, to my rusting process because, it does tend to leave the color on your things or, rusting over a, a long period of time is going to mess up whatever you're using. So, um, I'm sorry about the lighting. I just kind of, as I've explained before, have to do it when I can, and this is good a time as any. So I just have a container here. It's probably about 4 inches, 4 inches deep. Use any container you want. I would suggest plastic. Um, I am not a scientist. I don't know how this stuff works. I know just enough to be dangerous. So I have seen it done with white vinegar, peroxide, and salt, just table salt. You can also use coarse salt. It's just more expensive and there's no need for it. I mean, this works just as good. So the recipe was a cup of the vinegar, and I don't fill my vinegar all the way to the top, and I'll explain that in just a second why I don't. So a cup of the vinegar, a cup of the peroxide, and I use a little more than a cup on the peroxide. And I'll explain, like I said, again in a minute why I do that. So I just let that kind of overflow and for sure fill it all the way to the top. And then on the salt, I start with about 2 tablespoons. Again, you'll want to play with how you do it. Just put in 2 tablespoons. And then I just kind of mix it up so that the salt will dissolve. And whatever container you use, you're going to want one that has a lid because if it's not very deep, which I've even had it to do it in this one, as deep as it is, and you can see I don't have very much of it filled. But once you start adding your metals, it will rise, like create a foam, and that foam will go over the edge of your things, and you don't want it everywhere. So that's why you want something that, whatever you use, make sure it has a lid. Okay, so that's it. That's how you mix up your rusting liquid. Now, the reason I don't use as much vinegar is I have found through what I'm doing, and I'm just going to add some paper clips to this. And I have not rusted these paper clips before, so I'm not sure how well it's going to do. I can tell you that the paper clips from the Dollar Tree do not work. They're coated with something that kind of feels like a plastic or something. You can rust them from now until the end of time, and the best you will get I'll show you in a second because I've done it and I've left it for days, weeks. But I don't know if I have any of them left, but I had some and I've used them. I mean, because they do get a slight coating, but I think it's more from the liquid. It's not necessarily um, rusting the metal. Yeah, and I can't find any, but like these are soda pop lids, the little tabs, and that's about as good as the ones from Dollar Tree will get. But those, as you see, they won't rust either. So the reason I only use a little bit, I don't use as much vinegar, is vinegar is, its purpose is to clean your metal, to strip it down so that the peroxide and the salt can corrode it, which is strange because vinegar will remove rust, but it also aids in this rusting process. And I think the reason, again, this is the reason I didn't want to make this video. I know just enough to be dangerous. I think the reason it works in this is because it cleans off the metal so that it's quicker for the peroxide and the salt to do their work. That's my theory. So sometimes when you put stuff in here, I mean, very quickly, it'll turn brown and start rusting. Well, these really haven't. So that tells me, well, they're starting to. I can see some brown happening. And so probably in 10 to 15 minutes, I'll be able to show you the difference in color from the liquid color, and it probably will start foaming. I'm going to add just a few more paper clips. So anyway, that's why I add more peroxide than vinegar, is I want the corrosion to happen quickly. So I add more peroxide and salt. And if this doesn't work, I'll go in and start adding more salt. Sometimes your metals will turn black. And when that happens, what I've found is the best way to rinse them off in water and then put them back in a peroxide solution only for a little bit. And then I start gradually adding salt. And that will usually rest it. Sometimes I have to add a little bit more vinegar. You know, I just play with it, whatever works. Some things I've done for weeks and weeks and nothing really happens. So it just depends. Also, I usually steer away from, like, I have rusted brads and those work pretty good. But like the little bulb pins like this, I do rust safety pins, but I don't sell them in my shop because they're thinner. And, you know, the bulb pins, the safety pins, those kinds of things, the rusting process, of course, changes the integrity of your item. So like jump rings, something that you really need to hold and have strength, I wouldn't advise because it is going to make it a lot weaker. They may even break, you know, the jump rings, the safety pins. I've had them to just break because it does pretty much eat your metal and make it a very soft, breakable metal. So, that all being said, that's why, ooh, it's starting to foam. I don't know if you can see it, but it is starting to foam and turn colors. That's why I don't rust things that are not necessarily fragile, but it's important that they stay strong. You know, I think it messes with the integrity too much. I use the safety pins a lot just to clip to a piece of fabric. Like I'll clip it onto the word just as decoration or ephemera. I don't usually, I don't hang heavy things from it or heavy jewelry because I'm afraid that it will break. But again, you mess with it. If this is something that you're interested in rusting, mess with it. See what you like and don't like. I've put all kinds of things in here. Um, Jewelry crimps, those work great. The like file folder binders, those are great. All different kinds of jewelry I've tried. Um, I've done washers and things like that. Those look really neat. I've done pieces like this. Now, this is a really thin metal. It's bendable before you rust it. And I loved it, but I don't sell them in my shop because I'm afraid people will be like, well, that's really bendable. It is, but I only use it for decoration. I'm not wanting it to hold anything heavy. I've done bulldog clips, but again, I'm pretty cautious with those because it does break down the integrity of it. Uh, I like doing washers. I think those look neat. Although I will say some of them are really hard to get to rust. Here's a bulb pin that I've done just for decoration. And this one's pretty strong. But now I've done that before. Like this one, super thin. I mean, look at it. It's just bending every which way. It would not hold anything. That one is not good. But, you know, when I rust, I do a whole bunch at one time. If I was doing one piece at a time, I guess you could keep an eye on it to make sure it didn't make it too weak. But, you know, just for an example of how the rusting, you know, it's so picky, these pieces I sell in my Etsy shop. I did not sell these because they didn't turn pretty, and they're the exact same as the ones I sell. But whether I put them in with something that was, you know, taking longer or whatever, I just didn't like the color that they turned. So I won't sell them. I'll use them because I like the color, but you know, the ones in my shop are beautiful. They're patina, they're very rust color, but you can kind of tell this one kind of turned a little bit of black. And I know a lot of people wouldn't like that. So there's just certain things that even after I rest it, I might use them, but I don't necessarily put them in the shop because, you know, they're different. It's a funny little process. I bet there's a lot of people that have this down to a complete art, and that's not me. I can usually tell now by the color it turns if I need to add more peroxide or more salt, you know, that kind of thing. But it's still a guessing game when I do this. Staples. I love rusting staples, but to use them, if you're going myself, maybe it's just the kind of staples I use. I don't sell them either because if you're going to staple something very thick, it won't work. The little prongs they'll close too soon. They won't go through or they'll break. Now, if you're going to use it for decoration, like staple one piece of paper or two pieces of paper, it works great. So, you know, I would use it for that. But as far as thinking to use it on clusters and sorry, I'm going to get me a wipe and things like that, not really. I don't use it for that. I don't think that they're strong enough. So, as you can see, we've got some foam happening. We got some really pretty. I'm going to bring it down a little bit where you can see the color better. But you can see the foam is happening and you can see that rust is happening. So I'm going to stir this a little bit so you can see it a little. Ooh, it's getting some good color in there. And you can tell some of them are really rusting quickly and some of them are not. So I don't normally stir them. I usually just put them in there, let them set for, 20, 30 minutes, 10 minutes. I'll come back and check, see how foamy it is, see what degree of rusting we're at. Another thing to remember is a lot of times things that you think aren't going to rust, if they've been in there a while and you take them out and you put them, in a dry bowl or a dry plate or wherever, that liquid will still rust on it. Now, granted, it probably can be wiped off, not easily. I mean, it is going to stay to some extent. It would take some cleaning to get it all off, but it will still give that rusty look. Even things you think, well, that didn't work. I've come back after they dried, air dried, and they had a beautiful rust on them. So again, even if you think it doesn't work sometimes in here, it it is working. You just won't know it really until it's all the way dry. But again, there are some things that absolutely will not. Like I said, the Dollar Tree paper clips, those have some kind of a film, a rubber, or something on them, and they just flat will not rust. They don't look good. To me, some people might like them, but it doesn't really give a rust look. Um, if I had some, I would throw some in here to show you, but I think I actually used them all on another project, so I don't have any that I can show you. But again, just play around with it. Sometimes jewelry, like jewelry pieces or clamps like this, you could probably use something like that. I think the integrity of that might stay. I know that on the little bulldog clips that have the little wire spring, that's not the best, because that spring, it'll wear it down where it doesn't want to close real tight, which sometimes works depending on what kind of use you're doing with it. Maybe you don't want it to hold real tight. Another thing, I'm feeling the top of this, I'm thinking to tell you, is it's going to get warm. It's not hot, but it will get warm to the touch. It won't burn you. It won't, anything like that. I wouldn't drink it. I mean, note, this is not for internal use. This is external only. But, I mean, it's not going to burn you. So when you see it foaming up and you feel that it has warmth to it, don't panic. It won't burn you or anything. And I say that half as a joke. Now, I'm, a little bit funny about, I'm going to lift this back up, funny about things like this. And, I don't know. I've never done this before. So in my mind, I thought, okay, I'm probably going to singe all my hairs off my face, have no eyebrows or eyelashes. I don't know. But it doesn't. It's not that kind of a reaction, chemical reaction or whatever. It won't hurt you. But it does have a warmth to it. It's actually really nice and warm. As you can see, it's getting a really pretty color to it. But I'm going to leave this for a bit, and I'll come back in, like I said, 15-20 minutes, and we'll check it and see what it looks like. Okay, so it has been about 15 minutes. And it is really, really, see all that good foam in there? And the pretty, I don't know, you probably can't see the color. Let me try to stir it up a little bit. But I mean, it has a really thick foam on it. And it has a really rich rust color. You can see that. Let's take a few of them out and see what we got. And I have some popsicle sticks laying here because, I can't just do things and leave it alone. I have to see if other things are going to work. And these probably are rusted enough. I can tell that if I lay them out, I'm going to lay a couple of them out for you here and let the liquid drain off. I think they're pretty rusted. I think they'll look pretty good. But I wanted to show you what was happening before I added these popsicle sticks. Because like I said, I can't leave nothing alone. And I wondered about it, rusting wood. I know that sounds stupid, and it probably somebody out there going, well, you are a mess if you think that's going to work. But I wanted to try it. I want to see. I want to see what happens. But I wanted to show you first what this looked like so that if this doesn't work and it kills all the chemicals that are reacting or whatever by throwing in this wood. I wanted to show you that it does work first, but then I'm going to throw in these wood pieces and see what happens. And I'm going to leave this for a bit, and I'll come back and show you if it worked. And by the way, when you're done with this, don't get rid of this rust water. If you like rust paper or different things, we can make a lot of stuff with this rust water. And on my next video, I'll show you what that is. I'll show you some different things to make with this rust water. But I'm going to leave this for probably another 5 or 10 minutes and come back. And see, some of these are kind of black, but I can see the rust. I don't know if you can or if it's just looking black, but there's a nice rust on that. And once they dry up, they're going to look really pretty. And so I'm going to let them set while I've got my wood pieces in here. And we're going to see what we get from that. May not get nothing. I don't know. We may just color it, you know. It might just be coloring it. But I'm going to hopefully leave it overnight or long enough for it to dry and see what it looks like when it's done. But anyway, like I said, I'll come back in another 5 or 10 minutes and we'll see what has happened. Okay, so I think the popsicle sticks are just basically going to be this pretty color. The bubbles are popping. It's not leaving any kind of a texture on there that I can feel. And then the paper clips, they're not as rusty as I like, but I wanted to show you what they ended up looking like. So I'll probably put them back in there and let them rust some more. But that's the process. I usually leave them for several hours, half a day, something like that, because I like them to have a nice rusty film on them. And it's probably been, I'm guessing probably 2 hours since I started with them. And this is what they look like. They're getting pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and do some things, and in probably a couple more hours I'll take them out. I'll put them in a bowl or on this towel to rest and dry, and they'll be a beautiful rusty color. So for those of you that wanted to rust, I hope this helped. I know it was kind of not a very accurate or, you know, detailed, but that's kind of how it is. For me, I haven't found an exact process. It's just kind of hit or miss, and when it doesn't work or it doesn't rust, I just keep adding, taking away, that kind of thing. But those are the 3 ingredients that I use. I hope you guys like this, and if you're interested in what to do with the water that comes from this, what I do with that, I will try to show you some things on my next video. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.